Good afternoon, everyone. I am Ege Dündar. Thanks for joining us today. I'm a writer and activist and board member of PEN International, the world's largest association of writers, dedicated to promoting literature and defending freedom of expression. Welcome to this event for the publication of War, Censorship and Prosecution, PEN International's case list for 2023 and 2024. The case list documents 122 cases of writers facing harassment, arrest, violence, and even death worldwide. For over a century, PEN International has monitored and advocated for writers who have suffered repression, their right to write freely and to comment on the world around them without fear or repercussion. PEN International's case list is a yearly document of violations against writers, what happened, where, and by whom. It covers writers of fiction and non-fiction, journalists, academics, poets, playwrights, songwriters, and translators, anyone who works with the written word. It's a powerful reminder of the risks faced by writers around the world for their peaceful expression. Without the right to expression, we can't know if the other rights are functional. Writers, like town criers, are often the first to sound the alarm on problematic issues in their societies. The prosecution and loss of peaceful and caring people should bring us together over supporting them, to stand up for values that we all share. Not because they are unique, but because they are emblematic of what happens to those speaking truth to power. Autocratic forces collaborate on strategies of censorship. As we share similar threats into the future, from wealth inequality to migration, climate change to free expression, we should consolidate our collective efforts beyond political, economic, and ideological divides to ensure that the voices of our colleagues and friends will not be easily silenced, nor will we. My father, a writer and journalist from Turkey, was prosecuted unfairly, and he features in the case list. When we were isolated, slandered, and prosecuted by brutal state power, the global PEN family stood with us, and I'm ever thankful for them showing solidarity in practical ways as we try to rebuild our lives. After 7 years at PEN International, I have a strong sense of how this solidarity works. I am deeply aware of the painstaking research and advocacy work that goes into it, and I could not be more proud of my colleagues who work to reach out to our other colleagues at risk, amplify their voices, and follow up with them for years to come. If I feel safe and strong today, it's because of them, and I thank them from the bottom of my heart for their efforts. Today marks World Poetry Day. Several persecuted poets feature in the case list, including Innocent Bahati from Rwanda. Let us open this event with his empty chair. Innocent Bahati is a young, popular Rwandan poet known for his open and critical expression on social issues. Bahati has been missing since 7 February 2021, after he reportedly went for a dinner meeting with an unnamed person at a hotel in Nyanza district in the southeastern province of Rwanda. We did not return to Kigali, as expected. His associates tried to reach him by phone that evening, but found that Bahati's phone was turned off. After 2 days of trying to establish his whereabouts, his disappearance was reported to the Rwanda Investigations Bureau. Its spokesperson denied that the agency was holding him, that investigations were ongoing, and that no information would be revealed at the time. In 2017, Innocent Bahati had similarly disappeared after he made a poetic post on Facebook only to reappear in police custody. Although he was not charged for any offense, he was sent to prison without trial and freed after 3 months following a court order. PEN International believes that Innocent Bahati's disappearance is in relation to his critical poetry and critical expression on issues affecting Rwandan society. PEN International urges the Rwandan authorities to ensure his safety and his well-being. Today, we will hear from 4 panelists who will speak to the issues and writers featured in the case list, starting with Thida, writer, activist, and chair of PEN International's Writers in Prison Committee, Fatena Al-Ghorra, Palestinian poet, Tania Bruguera, Cuban artist, author, and academic, and Marko Vidojković, Serbian writer and journalist. The case list is a powerful reminder of the risks faced by writers around the world for their peaceful expression. A few ground rules before we start. This event will be recorded and later uploaded onto PEN International's social media channels. We will hear from our 4 speakers, followed by a Q&A session. Participants will be muted, but I invite you to go into the Q&A function and add your comments and questions for the end. So I will start by introducing our first speaker. I'm pleased to introduce Thida, chair of PEN International's Writers in Prison Committee. In 1993, Thida was arrested by the repressive military regime of Myanmar on charges of endangering peace, having contact with illegal organizations, and distributing unlawful literature. She served 6 years in insane prison. As founder and former president of PEN Myanmar, Thida has played a key role advocating for human rights in Myanmar and globally. Following the 2021 coup in Myanmar, poets and writers have been at the forefront of the resistance to junta rule, with many persecuted for their writing and activism. Welcome, dear Thida. I want to ask you, why has poetry come to symbolize dissent to military rule in Myanmar? And why does the junta view poets and writers as such a threat?
Well, yeah, in my country, it has been a very long tradition to having a literary talks. And at every literary talks, people would like to listen to reciting poems, poetry, something like that, because we do have a very different way of presenting poetry. It's not just the rhyme and rhythm, but also the modern poetry, so many poetry. So poetry is pretty much like our ground understanding of what's happening in the deeper part of the society. You know, it reflects our daily life, it reflects our history, it reflects our way of thinking, it reflects our hunger for freedom, it reflects everything, something like that. So that's why it's pretty much influential, I might say. So that's why the role of the poetry and writers, it has been pretty much very important throughout these days in order to looking for the freedom of expression, the freedom. So it's a creativity. It's for us throughout these censorship years, 5 decades. It's not just the creativity is not just looking for freedom, but also the way how we practice our freedom, the way how we use our integrated freedom to finding the best way to got publication, something like that. So that's why I think the whole society, it's very much more progressive, more responsive and sensitive to all these political situation inside the country. For that reason, as soon as the coup happened, and most of the writers and poets, they taking part so intensely, immensely, and very publicly because of their influence. A lot of the local populations also stood up together with them, something like that. So for that reason, throughout our history, the consecutive military regimes has been pretty much targeting the writers and poets, and the one who express freely are as their enemies.
I see. So you're saying that in a sense they are emblematic for what society at large experiences.
Yes.
Thank you, Thida. I really appreciate that. Um, Before we will have time for questions at the end for each speaker, so we will leave that to there. You can log your questions in the Q&A section below, and we will then move on to introducing Fatena Al-Ghorra. The situation in the occupied Palestinian territories and Israel has slipped into unprecedented levels of violence, where harrowing violations of international humanitarian law have been committed and unparalleled human suffering has been mounting since Hamas's 7th of October attack on southern Israel. Among those who were killed, a staggering number of at least 14 writers and poets lost their lives in less than 4 months, alongside with 30,000 other people, marking the deadliest conflict for writers in recent history as well. Fatena Al-Ghorra is a Palestinian poet, journalist, translator, and member of PEN Flanders, who survived the war in Gaza. Fatena translated poetry from Dutch into Arabic for various literary projects, including Fatena's Poetry Salon, which she hosts in the Netherlands and Belgium. Dear Fatena, welcome and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for
Sorry.
Thank you, Ege, for inviting me today. Thank you for PEN International for inviting me today, and for all the members here and the people who's watching this podcast or channel. Well, actually, it wasn't the challenges that we face, writers face in Palestine, specifically in Gaza Strip. It's not a recent thing. It's begun since the occupation, actually, since they occupied Palestine, 1948. Since and even before that, when we had the Haganah gangs, and they killed poets, they killed singers who used to sing and to tell Palestinian songs to encourage people. That was before even the occupation, during the British occupation. So it's not a recent thing, and it's not after 7th of October, because Israel didn't occupy Palestine 7th of October. It's going on procedure actually to prevent us. So if we want to talk about exactly what we need as writers in Palestine, or all the writers, if we want just to make just small lines about what we need to have, as writers. First of all, we need the safe opportunity to present our creativity to specific audience. This is once. And this, we don't have it in Palestine. And if we have it, there is so many risks that something will happen and to cancel the events. So, or you cannot be able to go to attend to that event. Second of all, the movement that usually occurs in the cultural community leads to the development of this sense, and this is we don't have, because normally when you write something, or you make like creative art or something, you need to present it to people. And for the people in Gaza, they only have Gaza to present their work there. You don't have the luxury even to go to West Bank or Ramallah. So there is no movement happens here between writers, between the audience and the writers. So the people, they are ignorant about what's going on in the cultural field, especially in Gaza. I'm talking right now because also I'm from Gaza. That's why I'm also talking about it. And also about printing and publishing, which enables the creator to obtain appreciation and recognition from for himself and his work. And this also has to do with the events, the movement, and being together. Also the cultural contact with multiple culturals, which leads also to the openness of creativity to new space. So we are talking about all of these points leads to a better cultural society, which we don't have. We are prevented to do all of these things. The creators or the cultural society in Gaza, it's like Gaza. It's in a siege, in a prison. So they read each other. They go to their each other occasions, or book fairs, even small book fairs, because in Gaza you don't see book fairs. For instance, you have it in Ramallah, but you don't have it in Gaza. You have to encourage these people to go out at least. How many times we received invitations to go abroad to a festival, to be part of in a festival in outside of Palestine, and I was one of the people who were prevented so many times and to go outside for poetry evening or events. So you are locked in inside this society. What shall we do? I think we need to be more related to what's going on for real. We don't need to count on the names that we know already, and it's already established names with the history. Some of them, lots of them, especially when we are talking about people who's older. I'm not against old, of course. I'm getting old, all of us. But I mean, we don't see the role of the youth, the real youth, in the movement of this. And this happens if we give them more support, more platforms to be here, to be seen. So this is what we need to do to the people. We need to make at least I don't know, like a map of writers and creators in Palestine, especially in Gaza, because they don't have these canals. So at least we have to make like connection with a few numbers, or writers, or painters, or filmmakers, and we have plenty of them in Gaza and in Palestine. So at least to contact the new generations, to hear their voices, and also to not fall in this trap where everything comes from Palestine should be fine art or and something remarkable. No, we need also, because this is, we heard the literature and the Palestinian art and literature. We need to give it its what it deserves for critic. I mean, like, do not accept all anyone who send you like poems, or because these people, maybe they don't write real poem, they just write like their emotions, and we all know poetry is more than in emotions. I'm talking more about poetry, but I mean all what we create in Palestine. It's a huge topic actually to be answered in 5 minutes, but I tried to focus on just what these people need, and they don't have actually in the reality, and how we could make like a link, a bridge between us and them, to let them be heard and seen more than before.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's very difficult to shorten this topic into 5 minutes, but I think your points are very important, especially for underrepresented voices, because we do focus on the goldfish effect, as they say.
Yes.
One big case, you just support them and it's all okay. But actually, those younger and less known need even more help. So thank you.
Exactly, and there is more creative actually, and very unique voices in these new voices in these new generations than the old one. So we need them to enrich our cultural scene actually.
Absolutely, thank you. And there might be a lot of questions later to follow up on your point. I will just quickly move on our list to Cuba. And Cuba sadly has the highest number of artists in the Americas region imprisoned or otherwise persecuted for their artistic freedom. There are no guarantees of due process, and there's no independent legal defense. Many writers have left the country, believing that it offers them the only means of freedom to continue with their art. I am very pleased to introduce Tania Bruguera. She's a renowned multidisciplinary artist and author, currently a senior lecturer and affiliate faculty at Harvard University. Bruguera is the founder and director of the Hannah Arendt Institute of Artivism, INSTAR. Bruguera is the author of several books, including The Francis Effect, Tania Bruguera, Let Truth Be, Though the World Perish, Tania Bruguera in Conversation with Claire Bishop. Tania also features in our case lists. Welcome, dear Tania. Can you please share some more information about the censorship faced by writers and artists in Cuba? In this year's installment of the case list, Cuba is the country with the highest number of threats in the Americas, together with Nicaragua. Please tell us more about the crisis facing the American continent, specifically in your country.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me and to be with such an amazing group of people. I think in the Americas, and I will include the United States as well, there is a very critical moment for censorship. in Latin America, there have been huge persecutions to journalists and writers and artists. And the main case has been Nicaragua, where the majority of PEN Nicaragua members had to leave the country forcefully. And the 222 prisoners were forced to leave the country, but also they took away their nationality, making them de facto people without, displaced, but without any country, stateless people. So basically, they have been, this has been one of the most intense examples, but also I want to quickly, before I go to Cuba, talk about the cancel culture and the bans, and how governments are using cancel culture, which originally was made to, let's say, like correct some of the people who have been doing awful things and question how come, if they have right or not to their work or to distribute the work. And what many governments are doing is using the culture, the cancel culture, for dissidents, pretending they are doing something they are not doing, or offending in things they are not offending, as a way to legitimize their censorship internationally. So in the United States, I just want to very quickly say that it's been a massive censorship of books, particularly the ones for schools, where they address LGBTQ plus issues. And also I have to say that in universities and also in general in the culture sphere in the United States, talking about Palestine has become extremely censored. I can do examples of collectors that return the work of artists because they have signed a letter in defense of Palestine or support. The market for artists has been brutal, like taking some artists' price really low as a punishment, or taking them out of the market altogether. So I think in universities as well, like professors are advised not to talk about the issue, not to engage in these discussions. And, Harvard, for example, is one of those examples that our president was forced to leave due to Palestine issues. So in case of Cuba, I want to address three quick elements. First, the political prisoners. We have thousands of political prisoners, including journalists, artists, and activists in general. We have done everything possible to liberate them. The government doesn't care. So we don't know what else to do. So we feel in a kind of situation where they don't care anymore about their public image related to the prisoners, and they feel like they are being used for exchange, so they put a price on their heads. The other thing I wanted to talk is the lack of solidarity with what happened with Cuba. I understand that Cuba was 65 years ago a place where people can put their hope about a better society, a place where things will be corrected, no racism, no classism, not, all of these utopias were going to be made. Unfortunately, 65 years later, this is not the case. We have a corrupt government. Recently, the Minister of Economy was put in prison because he was bringing to the United States millions of dollars illegally from his corruption. So we have a corrupt government, we have an inept government, and we have a government that doesn't care about people at all. So this is a problem we are facing, because when a writer writes a book critical about Cuba, an artist do an exhibition with some elements critical about what is happening now in Cuba, we have the people who should be our allies, the people we defend, are not defending us because we are offending them, let's say, because we're saying the reality that is happening in Cuba, and it doesn't correspond with the image they have of what Cuba is, which is 65 years ago. So I think this is a very critical element, because a lot of artists feel abandoned, feel they're fighting alone against everybody, the government plus the other people. especially now when more than 70% of the artists left the country in the time of 2 years. Now they live abroad and they have this conflict as well. And the last element I want to talk is the tentacles of the Cuban government outside of Cuba. And this might go also for the Nicaraguan, I mean, I assume. They expel you, they force you to exile, they put you in a precarious situation because many of the artists who were forced to leave the country are now in an illegal situation in Europe. And this is, of course, putting them in a very, very vulnerable situation. And what happened is that the Cuban government is not only satisfied that they get rid of you, therefore there is no more pressure internally for them. They can discredit what you do because you don't live there, so therefore you don't have the authorized voice. But actually, they are making sure that the artists, the journalists, the writers do not have any professional development. And that has been completely... I mean, we have examples, we have case studies of the Cuban government intervening in book fairs to tell the organizers to disinvite certain artists, certain writers. We have cases, studies of cinema festivals where they have talked to the organizer to disinvite or forbid anybody who is an independent filmmaker to be part of the festival. And I am one of the people that for 3 occasions, the Cuban government had made sure that, or try that I'm not participating in the event. The last one was 2 weeks ago. I had a show in Malta, it's a biennale, and the ambassador of Cuba, who is in Rome, traveled to Malta to make sure that I was disinvited. And they even brought a list of pro-government artists to invite instead of me. So this is also very complex because it's not so well known. People think that they expel you and that's it. No, they expel you and they keep making your life extremely difficult. And disinviting you, but also spreading fake news or fake information about yourself, so people don't work with you and so on. So I think those are the elements. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tania. That was a very compelling picture of what's going on. And as I listen to our speakers, I'm also realizing that what you say, governments don't care, is true for all of us. That they work across borders to silence us is true for all of us. Doesn't matter which country, but the tactics they employ are the same. So we need to also come up with resolutions, and we can discuss that in the questions section, perhaps. Just before moving on to Serbia, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Marko Vidojković. In October 2023, PEN International published a report entitled Toxic Narratives Silencing Expression in the Western Balkans, which documents the myriad threats and harassments faced by independent journalists, writers and activists in Serbia, one of the most dangerous places in Europe outside of Ukraine to work as a journalist. Marko Vidojković is a writer and journalist, TV host from Serbia, who regularly comments on political and societal issues, including in his podcast The Good, the Bad and the Evil. His dystopian novel Diubre, Trash, focuses on corruption and attracted the ire of pro-government media and members of the public. Marko Vidojković had to relocate from Serbia in 2023 after receiving a series of death threats. His case features in the case list. Welcome, dear Marko. How is your case emblematic of the shocking threats and harassments faced by independent voices in Serbia? And what can international organizations such as PEN International do to help address the situation?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Well, my case is typical, maybe a bit extreme, because it ended with well, it didn't end it yet, but it ended with relocation. During the last year, my wife and I were 9 months abroad. Then we got back to Serbia because we had the elections in December of 2023, and we are awaiting new elections because the previous elections were rigged. So the new elections are on June the 2nd of 2024. And the regime is at their best at this point because before the elections, they they do not go into complete violence as they can. So I decided, of course, with after consulting with friends from PEN International and other organizations, to come back temporarily, and maybe we will see what will happen after the June the 2nd, because well, to cut things short, I will first of all let me describe you a typical method used for retaliation against those who dare to criticize the regime in Serbia. And trust me, every public personality is no public personality is spared from this. And I'm sure that this will sound familiar because it's from autocracy to the autocracy. It's pretty much the same. But here is what it is like here. So it starts with the smearing and threatening campaign coming from either high-ranking regime officials or regime control media, often both, against the targeted person. So let's call that person from now on the target. And do have in mind that 90% of media, or maybe even more, of all media in Serbia are regime controlled. So such campaign starts viciously at the same time with identical texts in all media outlets. And this campaign could last up to 7 days or even more. So imagine that you hear your name day from after day and after day for 7 days, and of course this campaign is followed by the swarm of online insults and threats, hundreds, even thousands in some cases, depending of how vicious the campaign is. And then that is followed by verbal and physical attacks on the street. So all this being encouraged by corrupted judiciary, which does close to nothing to protect the target. During this organized attack, the only protection the target has is not leaving their apartment. Now, if such campaigns happen often against the same target, which was my case, I had certainly more than 10 huge campaigns, several day campaigns in a period of less than a year and a half during 2021 and 2022. Well, then even when the campaign stops, it's not safe anymore. You're not the target anymore, you become the prey. And you are a possible victim of attacks, of random attacks or organized attacks. We don't know which is which on the streets. And of course, these attacks will stay unpunished, or maybe even worse, punished by a least possible sentence. So let me, go through this perfectly organized network of terror. It consists of, as I said before, high-ranking government officials, pro-regime media or regime control media, which in Serbia is the same, far-right extremist groups, which are also controlled by the regime, then sports hooligans, which are also controlled by the regime, and of course, hundreds of thousands of members of the ruling Serbian Progressive Party, out of which tens of thousands are active internet trolls. Something like we have a similar troll farm as as it was of late Prigozhin in Russia. So all this is sheltered once again by totally corrupted judiciary. Everything, the situation in Serbia seems most likely, it really reminds us to the situation in Russia. But Serbia is still the candidate for European Union, and is surrounded by other candidates or members of European Union. So I I really cannot tell why, but this terror lasts for 10 years. For last 4 years, it really got worse and worse. And it was, you know, the international community was turning the blind eye. I can go now into reasons why they called this government the stabilocracy, you know, like 8 years ago. So stabilocracy turned into autocracy, of course. And in this, what I described just now is not, you know, the only, but it's typical. It's what waits everybody who dares to speak against the regime in Serbia. Of course, there are slap suits. I collected 3 of them, all from one high-ranking government official. And these are the lawsuits I am aware of, because in Serbia you can be on trial and not know about it, but only find out about it when the sentence is out and when you need to pay the emotional damage to some you know, poor regime soul. So, you know, having in mind the publicity and awareness and is that coming from international organizations, and I would really much to thank PEN International, which starting from my case, it was in January 2023, really paid close attention on what's going on, not just in Serbia, but also Western Balkans, because, you know, Serbia is the largest country in Western Balkans with pretty close ties with Russia. And, you know, this it's not good when you have this influential autocracy and Serbian minorities all around the region. It really can spill out in several other countries. So we have similar situation in other countries in Western Balkans, but in Serbia, by far the worst. So we are now completely without any protection and without any defense. We have until June the 2nd the hope to maybe something is going to change in local elections in the capital Belgrade, but even if it doesn't, and the chances are that these elections will be rigged again, because this is what this government does. After that, I'm sure that they were closely watching and paying attention what's going on and who was speaking what, and they are of course watching this also as we speak. And we don't know what will happen once we don't have we are not in the campaign for the elections. Now at this point, I have to say that the publicity of my case was really helpful for me to in order for me to get back for a little while and to be prepared to be relocated again if something happens. But you know, I'm one, and there is a lot of us who are in a similar or exactly the same or even the worse situation than I am right now. So at the end, I need to ask, please keep your eyes on Serbia, and please keep the world informed on what's going on here, because the situation can only get worse at this point. Thank you.
Now, this is some examples of what we are trying to do, but of course, there's much else to be done, and often we're good at describing how badly things are going, but we also equally need to offer solutions where we can work towards something. So, Mike, I just have a question for all of you, really. You've all raised different country contexts. I wonder, what do you think the international community can and should do to show more solidarity? It's more of a two-part question, because I also want to ask you about youth. We spoke about it in the beginning. In a sense, your younger peers will be inheriting these situations you find yourselves in. And I would just want to know, what would you advise them, younger peers in your circles, to start doing from now for a better future, to start resolving these issues? Maybe we'll try with Fatena Al-Ghorra first, and then I would like to receive all of your answers if possible. Thank you. Fatena, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I had technical problem. Yes, sorry, I was busy, so I didn't follow the last sentence. Can you please repeat it again?
Of course. Yes, I just wanted to ask a two-part question. What do you think the international community can do against these issues we are facing? And also what you would advise your younger peers in your circles to start doing now for an improvement in the future?
Oh, it's again two big questions. I actually I rather say about what should I say to the younger generation actually. Don't give up. Never give up. And dream big. And do not stop resistance. Do not stop arguing. Do not stop making noises, giving people hard time in their minds. Do not stop giving the whole world hard time. This is what I want. Be yourself. Don't listen to us. Do not listen to us, to the older people, because we have our ideology. It was fixed ideology. You have your own ideology. This is what I do. Your life, live your own life. It's what we live. It's not yours. This baggage that we have it's not yours, it's ours. So don't live while you are carrying our baggage. This is what I can tell, and I don't know if there's room to talk about the institutes that the occupation destroyed, or maybe later we can talk about
Yes,
it.
please. No, no, I just part of the question was also how we can, as an international community, support the issue ongoing on. So
To
please.
stop what's going on, actually, ceasefire.
Yeah.
This is the symbol, because during this war, the occupation destroy. If we want to talk about the historical Gaza, they destroyed almost 140 building from the old Gaza. It gave Gaza the historical face, like Qisariya, Zawiya, Souq al-Zawiya, Hammam al-Samra, al-Basha Palace, and other important places. There is also the most important, and not the most important, everything is important regards what's going on, but actually also that they destroyed 26 a cultural center and theater, 9 publish houses and libraries, 3 media production companies, museums like القرارة Museum, Rafah Museum, البادية Museum, المتحف Museum, الباشا Museum. As long as we can talk, I can mention so many names that the Israeli destroyed. And since the beginning of this world war, I said that it's a cultural war. So in order to stop it, we need actually to be to do more effort for ceasing fire now. So that's how we can support and save people there and save the culture even there.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that stark reminder. We need to be more proactive with that, especially our governments, I suppose. And I just want to move on to Tania and Marko, if you have an answer to the same question, just in terms of the problems, how can the international community help, and what can young people do? What would be your advice to them taking on these problems?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm so sorry to hear about, and I agree with you, this is a cultural war. And not only in Gaza, but it's also internationally, because the fact that a lot of people cannot talk about it. I was recently in Berlin and I did a project about this, and the censorship there is insane. Like, yeah, so solidarity with you. I just want to, I heard once, long time ago, a rapporteur from the UN for cultural affairs, that they had this now it changed, so it's a new person, so it's not their project. But once she said in a meeting that they wanted to do something similar that they do with journalists, with artists. I cannot remember the word they call it, but it's basically a protection for certain artists, and make it kind of in a legal way, make it protection to them. So if you are trying to kill them or attack them or whatever, like Marko was saying before, and it has happened also in Cuba, it is something they have to think twice, to go after artists. It might not stop them, but at least, because look, they have a journalist and they're killing journalists as well. But I think this is one idea, maybe how to create a certain protection name or something for certain artists. Not only that they are a risk, but something, I have to remember the name they use in the UN for the journalists, but something like that. So the government knows that they are being, that these people is not alone. Those people are not alone, and there are people somewhere monitoring what happened to that artist or that journalist or that academic or writer. And the other thing is to see how can we break all these, because Marko was talking about all this internet and also on the TV. Sometimes they put bad things about artists and explosive comments about artists, and people, so I think, how can we create a system of verification of what they are saying about us and the artists or the journalists or the writers or the maybe, because even like Wikipedia, for example, my Wikipedia, I cannot change it, and it has a few things that are not right. And they have people in Cuba just working on the Wikipedia of people. This is insane, So I think, how can we create maybe a database or a kind of Wikipedia style or whatever profile where people can go if they have doubt about who these people are and confront the truth, about. These are two ideas.
It's very useful. Thank you very much. I noted them down and just want to give the word to Marko quickly. Marko, you spoke poignantly about the risks you and fellow independent writers are facing. I wonder what gives you the strength to continue writing, and what do you think the international community as well as younger peers can do to address this problem?
Well, thank you. You see, I got back to Serbia, and this is because at one point, when they obviously realized that I'm making a big mess for them, and that they're suddenly paying a price for what are they doing to me, the campaign stopped. Campaigns stopped, and there was they even though they stopped, I was verbally attacked on the street like 3 days ago. So I'm I'm still in ungrateful situation, but I really had to measure should I come back for the December elections, knowing that we have another election in the spring, and I decided yes. I really had tough time. I'm the only person from Serbia being relocated. In my case, yes, certainly was the worst. But I really had a tough time sitting abroad and watching all my friends and colleagues, especially journalists, fight and for freedom of speech in Serbia. So I decided to get back here, and I have this privilege, how to say, to know that I have certain steps that I can make, like tomorrow, day after tomorrow, to get myself back into relocation. The others do not have that opportunity. So what we realized from my case, and later on from the case of the Professor Jovo Bakic, when you get public with them, when PEN International makes a statement along with PEN Serbia and other PEN centers, they get quiet because, as I said, we are still the candidate for a membership in European Union. So they need to measure their steps too. But as I said also before, the situation can only get worse. So I think the international community must be really not tough, but just to Serbian authorities. They cannot perceive Serbian authorities as democratic and able to act like they are like Serbia is normal country. Serbia is not normal country anymore. It's an autocracy with shut down media and the terror against all those who speak up against or who criticize the regime. So we need a constant attention from abroad to help us get over this dire situation. Speaking of youth, I will be short because there is not much to say to Serbian youth, having in mind that Serbia suffered the two mass murders on 3rd and 4th of May, day after day in 2023, and almost 20 kids and young people were killed by a kid and a young man. So we have a youngest mass murder in history, in our first mass murder in history of Serbia, which was on 3rd of May in elementary school Vladislav Ribnikar in the center of Belgrade. One pupil killed other pupils and a guard, a school guard. So he was a 13-year-old kid at that moment. And when you see what young people from 15 to 30 years old think about, you will find out that they are extremely right-winged oriented. This is because we live in a poor society, in a deranged society, in a society which glorifies war criminals, in a society that glorifies nationalism, and these young people do not have actually the future in Serbia, but to participate in nationalistic and chauvinistic rampage. That it's easier for a young. I know what it's like. It's easier for a young person to be a nationalist or a fascist even than to try to be a Democrat and to fight to even understand the democratic and liberal values. So it's really embarrassing that these same young people, when you ask them, do they see themselves in Serbia, almost 80% of them say they do not see themselves in Serbia in the future. So all of them are planning to flee Serbia, but all of them are at this point far-right extremists. So I cannot talk to them. I can only hope there will be some changes in Serbian society, in Serbian political climate. They can improve the situation for future younger generations after these kids who are, I'm afraid, lost, because in Serbia we had more than 10 years of Milosevic, and the youth were the ones who brought Milosevic down, including me. But now we have 12 years of Alexander Vučić, and we have and he obviously learned his lessons from history and mistakes from Milosevic, and really worked a lot on shutting down and the youth the youth resistance. So we don't have politically engaged youth in right way, but only in extremely right way.
I see. Thank you. That's a bit of a gruesome thing, because I always imagine youths being more progressive, but unfortunately in some countries it's not, and we have to work perhaps to remind them of peers across borders that have the same issues, and that maybe they should connect with others in similar shoes. Thida, I just want to also present you with the youth question, and also perhaps you can also address what PEN has done for some writers this year, for example, our emergency support work, what we're able to do, but also I'm curious to hear what you suggest for younger people to do in Myanmar, but also internationally. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm really happy with the young people from Myanmar. Right now, according to the statistics, I think at least 10,000 people were put trial under the defamation law, Article 505, 505A, something like that. So the military regime has been taken so seriously, acting as a digital dictatorship, digital tyranny, but the young people, with the help of the technological knowledge, they are fighting for their rights, fighting for their chance to be free. That's why it's reminded me the 10 years ago, one of my keynote speech, I wrote, the creativity rests not in freedom, but in hunting for freedom. Creativity does not come from the freedom we have, but the freedom we want to have. This is exactly what the young people in Myanmar is doing. With their own creativity, they are trying to combat both in terms of the resistance, we're doing the hybrid one, the peaceful way and the armed conflict. So right now, the young people, up to a dozen of the news agency has been banned by the military regime, but right now, after 3 years, we're having more than 3 dozens of the digital news agency, something like that. So it's by creativity, with the help of the technology, our population, the Burmese people, especially the young generation, they are doing with their own creativity to finding and hunting for the freedom, not with the freedom. We do not have the freedom. That's how I think this is also very true to us, as a writers, as a poets, as a kind of the creator. I believe in creativity. It's not because of the freedom. It's just for the freedom we should fight. So in this case, I'd say, of course, we are not very successful in convincing the authoritarian regime to release persecuted writers. A couple of handful cases we have gained in 2023. It's very, very little amount. Another issue is, not all writers are in prison, even though we call our committee writer in prison committee. We are facing a lot of writers at risk, including myself, So many writers are right now facing so much problem with the citizenship issue, or something like the serious demands for the relocation, etc. So for the international community, pay much attention to what's going on in individual countries. According to my experience in my own country, Myanmar, I think people just need the legal protection and legitimate protection, security, even though, we don't want to leave the country forever. We are just looking for a temporary refuge of freedom from the international community. In that case, what we were facing as a PEN International in past 2-3 years, it's the humanitarian visa. It's very hard for some countries. It's very hard for us to convince issuing the humanitarian visa for some writers at risk, or even if from some other part, especially from the global south, and there's some countries with the authoritarian regime, it's very hard for them even to get the humanitarian visa, not even for applying the immigration status. So I really want to alarm the international community, pay much attention to these issues. We are the critics. So we really want to get the freedom with the security. Without the sense of security, freedom is just nothing. That's why we want to have the respected sense of security from the international community. That's what the international community should grant it. Otherwise, only one solution is get rid of all the authoritarian regimes on earth with the with the effort of international community. If they cannot get rid of every single authoritarian regime on earth, they just need to take care of the victims of these authoritarian regime by guaranteeing the legal support or the other assistance. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thida. I think that you outlined some very important points. Also, how we are facing the same challenges. Our solutions might be the same in terms of raising awareness, and having a louder collective voice can then spare us individually, I hope. And I just want to go back to Fatena Al-Ghorra very quickly, because you mentioned obviously ceasefire is the most important thing to do right now. I am just wondering what is required from the international community after the war ends. How can we prepare for that? Of course, we're wanting it to end as soon as possible, but is there something we can do to prepare for the aftermath? What will be awaiting writers in the region? And what can the international community do after the fighting stops?
Visiting Gaza.
Yeah.
Visiting Gaza. Writing poems about Gaza, drawing something on the rubble of the destroyed houses, doing musical concerts on the rubbles of the houses, making festivals, cinema festivals, also between these houses, or the ashes of the houses. And this is even what we did, like from time to time, the Palestinian, they are doing that up to this moment, between the tent that they're sleeping in it these days, and they are doing presenting some movies for the children, so you can come support the people, bring them what shall rebuild this city in a cultural way, because Gaza, one of the most cultural cities, and also the people in Gaza, they are well known with their education, with their reading, and with their creativity, actually. So this is what I ask. All the people should go and visit Gaza and take the hand of the Gazan people and say, yeah, sorry.
Yes, I absolutely will. I think we will have a long history of trying to battle with this issue somehow with our peers, and so it will always stay on the top of our agenda. And I think I have to just start slowly wrapping up, but I have one last question for Tania and Marko. I just wonder if you're facing these extreme challenges, and still amidst these challenges you hold on to writing, to literature, and to art in your lives. What role do these practices play for you personally in your life to deal with these challenges that you're facing?
I don't know. It's a way to, in my case, I am an artist, and I use it as a way to transform horrible energy into positive energy. I try to also see what can we learn from these experiences through my work. I try also sometimes to put audiences in situation of a stress where they go through things similar or close to what we go through, as a way to identify this when it happens to them. Because sometimes repression and oppression, unless it's a war, can happen around you, and you have been educated to support, to endure it, or the society has naturalized all this abuse or all these restrictions, and you don't see it. And this is also another problem we have sometimes when we realize what is happening. If you are young, for example, what is happening to you when you're younger, maybe it's too late because already you have been targeted, So I think it's important. Also, the other question about the youth. In Cuba, everybody wants to leave the country, but it would be nice to see how can we teach in schools to young kids, like high school or whatever, classes where we teach them what does it mean to have freedom of expression, what does it mean to defend it, what does it mean, what elements we have to defend it, and why is it important? Because I think sometimes people don't even realize how important it is until it's too late, you know.
Absolutely. And they silence you first as artists and writers who speak out, and if you are silenced, they don't hear about it. So I think we as the youth also need to get behind supporting cases of our elder peers and learning and training ourselves in how they combat, because if we want to have free voices, we should look at people who are fighting to defend their free voices, like you. And Marko as well, I'd like to give you the same kind of question. I can repeat it if you like, or if you had a, yeah, you noted it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I have a writer's block. I have to be honest, it's quite impossible for me to write a new novel. I had 10 novels so far published, and they were written in far better times than this. I wrote 2 novels during this autocratic regime, and both are, politically engaged. But I started writing a new novel in autumn or the fall of 2022, and then we were relocated. And believe me, it's impossible for me to be relocated and to be in such a situation and write a novel. Then I'm already writing a daily column, but this is journalism, and I also record, and I recorded for all 9 months. I recorded every week via Skype our podcast. It was. I'm public personality since 2004. So I started to be well known or recognized in much better times. So in 2012, when Aleksandar Vučić became the first prime minister, but the ruler of Serbia actually, wise among us could see already in 2012 what is going on and where are we going. So I was one of those, and I immediately start criticizing his regime, because this is actually the regime of Slobodan Milošević, without Slobodan Milošević, but with Aleksandar Vučić, and we will see where we'll get there. So it was either to fight and raise your voice, or keep your mouth shut and write shalala novels. I don't know how to write those novels, and I don't know how to keep my mouth shut. So there was no question for me which will I choose. And I can only, from time to time wonder, what would be if I had 12 years of peace and democracy in Serbia to write novels which I would like to write. But I didn't have, and I didn't have actually a choice. So when I got back here, writer's block remained, and I really try, but you're my colleagues. There is no forceful writing. You need to enjoy it. I need to enjoy it when I write, because otherwise it's not writing. So I'm waiting for the moment to enjoy my writing, to start writing again. At this point, I'm fighting.
I think you raise a very, very important point. I also personally feel of writing poetry right now is a total block. And in a way, even writing about cases ongoing feels somehow wrong, because I feel I'm not trying to, express my thoughts over what's going on. What's going on is important enough. And so this is an important question, actually. I was reading a text by Camus literally 70 years ago, and he was saying, in the face of so much global suffering, if art insists on being a luxury, it will also be a lie. And I find this to be really compelling, because right now, in a sense, do you feel we have a duty to use our skills to address this global communal suffering and not sort of fetishize it and not, you know, make it exotic or put our voices as, look how beautiful I write about this subject. It feels wrong to me, but we must also encourage creatives to use their skills in favor of this. So perhaps I can ask Tania as an artist and then first, and then if you would like to respond, any of you, please do also come in. I'm just wondering how best to advise young people, or also just anybody in general who wants to use their creative skills in support of such cases, but maybe they feel that they don't have a place. They feel they don't know how to do that.
I think one of the biggest dangers I see is people thinking that everything happens somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in Berlin, they say, no, this will never happen here. It happens in Africa. Or, you know, or the United States say, no, it will never happen here. It happens in Cuba or in Mexico, you know. So I think we need, I propose a book that was done by Artists at Risk. And it was pretty fun because we interview a series of artists and I wish Marko was in there, asking what were the techniques they used to eliminate freedom of expression in their country. And it was surprising how similar they were in every country, like how much they use kind of the same techniques. So I think it's about that, about being conscious that freedom can be lost any minute. Like it's not a guarantee at all, you know, and it's not about what happened to others. It happens to you, and you need to identify. I mean, I work with students, I also teach, and I see a lot of lack of resources that students have to identify, because they feel something is wrong, they feel angry, but they don't know what to do with that. So I think it's yeah.
Absolutely. It's a very poignant question, even when I get asked from friends saying how they can join in. Sometimes just a letter writing could be really helpful, because by writing a letter, you take an active stance, you take on somebody's story, you know what's happened to them now, you can't ignore it. But as for some, of course, people, because of fear of what they might face as backlash, but also fear of sounding the wrong way about things, they may refrain from just joining these campaigns. And that's why I will direct the next question to Fatena Al-Ghorra, just to say that to people who may feel, as Tania said, far away from such problems, they feel it won't affect them, but they also might be compassionate people, so they don't understand the context, but they might be well-intentioned, they want to do something. Do you have any advice for such cases where they are far, but what would you urge them, or how would you urge them to approach the issue? Of course, we know it's a human issue, but I just wondered if you have any advice.
That would be so difficult. I'm not that good advising people. I think the only thing that I can say to anybody, go yourself and inform yourself about what's going on. Teach yourself about what's going on. Don't take it from the media or this channel or that channel, because you will never get the real truth if you follow only channels. Go follow your guts, follow your humanity, actually, and think just for 1 second that it's only because of luck that you are here and not there instead of that person who's suffering. So just for 1 second, put yourself in the other person's shoes. But it's difficult to advise anyone, especially right now, especially when we have issue, we have a real issue. And I don't mean only Palestine, I mean the whole world, that the humanity. We have an issue in our humanity. We need, this is the time to actually to act, to rescue our civilization. Otherwise we shall return like centuries back, and we have nobody to blame but ourselves, because we didn't do what's required to help.
Absolutely. I think that's a really great and important point to get ended because these are the most pressing issues, especially when people are being killed, fought, and war is raging, and disease and famine. I mean, we're talking about much more urgent issues than we did 5 years ago. And we also share these problems. Wealth inequality everywhere, tax evasion is an issue everywhere, corruption is an issue everywhere, censorship is an issue everywhere.
That's right.
You are very much right that we need to do away with our less pressing disputes and really get together. We can argue again in time years if things are better, but right
Let's
now,
argue. Let's argue. I wish
yes,
that we know how to argue because there is a lack of how to argue with someone. Do not be stubborn, and this is what you believe. Listen to the other people. They have their own narrative, and
yes.
their own narrative is solid also. So just give yourself like a moment of breathing and listen just to the other people.
Especially for the youth, because there's so much commotion and we are all shouting, we are all angry. But this case list is actually a good example because it offers us a chance to get together over the voices of these people who we are not uniting over an ideology or politics, but we are really having to talk to people who have spoken truth to power and who have found themselves in trouble. If we can get over them, then maybe we can get over all together. And I think I really admire all of the efforts of the people in the case list and you all for fighting for this. We're trying to bring us all together in such a convoluted time. And I would like to thank you all for joining us, Matida,
Thank you.
Fatena, Tania, Marko. Thank you so much for your powerful accounts. You will find detailed information about the situation for freedom of expression in Myanmar, Palestine, Cuba, and Serbia, and other countries in our 2023-2024 case list. PEN International is available to provide more information as needed. I would like to encourage all our PEN members and supporters to promote the case list, to write about the cases mentioned in the report, keep them alive, keep them on the map, keep your eyes on them, as Marko said, and to keep highlighting their plight. This year, the launch is accompanied by our call to action on behalf of 5 emblematic cases featured in the case list. These are Maxim Znak from Belarus, Gui Minhai from China, Galal El Bahiri from Egypt, collective of 12 writers held incommunicado in 2001 in Eritrea, and Freddy Antonio Quezada from Nicaragua. Please look them up and please take part in our campaigns. Scores of writers have seen their situation improve in recent years thanks to PEN's work. Campaigns do work. Your voices does make a difference. Please consider becoming a friend of PEN International and help us support writers at risk. Thank you for taking part in this event and joining PEN International in the fight to defend freedom of expression and combat censorship globally. Thank you so much.